it's interesting to think about like what, where has our understanding of like sexual relationships come from, whether it's like pop culture or porn or, film or whatever. It's interesting to kind of play with that, and I think Halina wanted to do that.
I'm going to go to you first, Halina, and I'd love to ask you a little bit about this kind of the power dynamics in this film, which is, about a dom-sub relationship, and also some of those power dynamics are flipped in terms of status and age, and it makes it incredibly fascinating. Would you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I wanted to make a movie about power dynamics, but in very different ways, not only sexually, but also in the workplace and as a woman, how you deal with all these different power dynamics and what is expected of you and what you truly feel. Mm-hmm. So to me, in every scene, power dynamics are at play. And we had so much fun with them, using the cliches, using the tropes, and then moving away from it and really trying to be as authentic with all of us as we could and bring radical honesty to these themes. And that is how I started to write this movie and how we created it.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you so much. And Nicole, I want to be sure that I ask this question about Romy's relationship with her daughter, which I think is another fascinating kind of power dynamic, because the daughter's a teenager. She's also queer. And I feel like Romy learned something from her. Would you touch on that?
Well, Halina was so interesting because she did bodies.
Yes.
So her understanding of kind of all the generationals, what do you call it when the generations come together and teach each other?
Yes.
And the younger generation in this film tends to be the ones teaching.
Yeah.
And so Esther, who plays my daughter in the film, she was so interesting because she's so delicate, but she's so strong. And it's more like I'm watching her and learning from her and then able to relate to Harris because of the way in which she's penetrating my psyche.
Yeah, incredible. Yeah, thank you. And then, Harris, I would love to talk to you a little bit about Sam, who is the dom in this relationship, but he's new to this, and he's also very vulnerable.
Yeah.
Would you talk about that kind of interplay within him?
Yeah, well, I think in a way they're both performing these roles. They've never done it before, so there's an element of like insecurity to what they do, and I think that was like part of the fun to show that as well with how we explored that. But it's interesting to think about like what where has our understanding of like sexual relationships come from, whether it's like pop culture or porn or film or whatever. It's interesting to kind of play with that, and I think Halina wanted to do that, and that was always a part of the conversations. So for me, that was kind of my way in, and then being able to like pierce the veil a little bit was great, because I think we've seen it before where it's very one thing or strict and performative in the wrong way. So
yeah, wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah, and then Nicole, I want to go back to you and just touch on this idea of female sexual agency and desire, and having this come from a woman and having it being crafted by Halina, from the writing to the execution. Would you talk about that dynamic between the two of you, playing this role?
Very safe, very intimate, a lot of freedom in expressing, because she's such a great listener. And so to be able to say things, and it felt like secrets were being exchanged, and then she was able to process those and put them into the film. And through that comes, it feels very free and hopefully very visceral. And it's coming from a very feeling-centered place.
Thank you. And then, Halina, there's this very important piece of the film where Romy is held accountable for her mistreatment of a woman of color. And I think that's an important conversation to have. Would you talk about including that?
Well, I just think we're making a movie that is about suppression and that is about, becoming your authentic self, but it's also we're also criticizing the characters. We're also looking at all the characters. They're all dark and light. They all have these difficulties that they're working through, and also they're ignorant. That's also why it's also a movie about two generations, about young people and old people. And we really wanted to stress that more important theme than anything else. It's about a new generation standing up and their ideas about feminism, their ideas about inclusion, their ideas about body positivity, kink positivity, and all of these things. And we really wanted to show that. We also really wanted to look at our generation with critical eyes, and see like who are we as feminists and who are they as feminists, and how do they think about inclusion and how do we think about inclusion. And that's why Romy has to learn a lot in this movie, not only from Esme, her assistant, but also from Samuel. She's really learning, she's really opening her eyes and waking up, and then hopefully at the end of the movie she knows more and she's more liberated and more she's able to accept herself more.
And my husband is learning, Antonio's learning.
Yes.
Everyone's in a
Position of
growth.
having to learn.
And adapt and change.